Welcome to Cat the Minion YouTube channel. My name is Teresa, but you can call me Cat. I'm doing a card of the day reading. I'm using my brand new to me Thoth deck. I've cleared and shuffled the deck already, and I'm going to get a card, or perhaps multiple cards, depending on how it goes. These are a little bit large, and I can just about get my hand around them. If I really stretch my ligaments here. I got these on eBay, and they're really smelly, like somebody had them sitting in a bath of perfume, and I don't know if it's like literally perfume or if it's incense, but it's kind of gaggy. I don't know. That happened to our cat once. Our cat walked a little too far from home, and some lady in the next town had him for a couple weeks, and he came back and smelled like a perfume puff. It's disgusting. There it is. Okay. I had an interesting time going through the booklet for this deck. I know it's slightly unusual, and it was I like the different interpretations and the way the whole system works for this deck. Princess of Swords. A lot of the descriptions for the court cards in this deck are actually kind of negative. The way that these angular shapes are drawn, they look like wings, so I get this like fairy essence for some of these swords cards. I'll try to hold it up so it can be seen a little better. One of the things that's interesting about this deck is the court cards. There isn't a king. And the way that it's set up, it's like the queen is the daughter of a reigning king, and in place of where the kings would normally be, there's knights. So what happens is that the knight is the first emanation of that suit, and then he unites with the queen, and they give birth to the prince, who is where a knight would normally be in the deck. And he is the prince is the first material emanation of that suit, so he's sort of, I don't want to say imperfect, but he's sort of abrupt, and it's kind of like a flavor explosion instead of like regular flavor. And then the princess is something that's sort of more refined. It's like more of a more finely spiced, not as in terms of hotness, but in terms of richness. There's more of a richness of flavor with the Princess of Swords. She's a little more refined. She's actually, maybe no, she is the first physical emanation. The prince is like the first union of, he's like the first embodiment of the element. It was sort of the knight is like initiation, and then the queen is like growth and nurturing of that, and then when the prince comes, he's like the first, he's like the prototype, and then the princess is what happens on the assembly line, kind of. She's not just an architectural drawing, she's the actual thing. But it's also like a more refined recipe, where it's, you just don't dump a bunch of salt on something and hope it's going to taste good. You put like, you know, herbs de Provence or something. So that being said, and hopefully I didn't get that too confused, because I literally have only had these for a couple of days. Let me get into... God damn, these are smelly. Okay. Okay. You've been trying to figure out your thoughts about a certain idea for a really long time, and there's been this constant back and forth of a struggle within. It's like, there's a song called The Windmills of My Mind, and let me look that up because that might be relevant, because I don't recall it offhand. Lyrics. Apparently by somebody called Noel Harrison. I know the song, but I don't know who that guy is. I don't want a little Tyrannosaurus, I want the actual webpage. Is my internet fail right now? Come on. Okay. Maybe I haven't heard this song in a really long time. Alright, there's a large chunk of lyrics here, but I'm gonna get through it. Round like a circle in a spiral, like a wheel within a wheel, never ending or beginning on an ever-spinning reel, like a snowball down a mountain or a carnival balloon, like a carousel that's turning, running rings around the moon, like a clock whose hands are sweeping past the minutes of its face, and the world is like an apple whirling silently in space, like the circles that you find in the windmills of your mind. Like a tunnel that you follow to a tunnel of its own, down a hollow to a cavern where the sun has never shone, like a door that keeps revolving in a half-forgotten dream, or the ripples from a pebble someone tosses in a stream, like a clock whose hands are sweeping past the minutes of its face, and the world is like an apple whirling silently in space, like the circles that you find in the windmills of your mind. Keys that jingle in your pocket, words that jangle in your head. Why did summer go so quickly? Was it something that you said? Lovers walking along a shore and leave their footprints in the sand. Is the sound of distant drumming just the fingers of your hand? Pictures hanging in a hallway and the fragment of a song, half-remembered names and faces, but to whom do they belong? When you knew that it was over, you were suddenly aware that the autumn leaves were turning to the color of her hair. Like a circle in a spiral, like a wheel within a wheel, never ending or beginning on an ever-spinning reel, as the images unwind like the circles that you find in the windmills of your mind. Okay, hopefully that wasn't, like, too drony, because, you know. Alright. So, I mean, the general sense I get is an idea of trying to cut back from overthinking so that you can actually express what you want to say. And in that sense, I get this idea of a little bit of tightening in the throat chakra, sore throat, coughing, forgetting your words, and things like that. And it's this idea of it's also this idea of having so many things to say at once that they can't all come out at the same time, and you have to start figuring out, like, what order to put them in and who you'll speak to and when. And I think at that point it can be somewhat challenging, but it's just the beginning. So let me see what's on the bottom of the deck. Yeah, exactly. So this is the Ten of Wands. Ten of Wands, plural. It's called oppression. This is what I call the skis. Little alpine chalet action going here. This is the blockage, the stop, the too much. And even though this is in wands, in that fire element, it leads into the idea of not knowing which to say, like being at an impasse. The way that this deck runs, with the princess coming after the other 3 court cards, this is actually a 1 or a 14 in this deck, which would end up being a 1 or a combined 5. So what I'm seeing is this flip-flopping back and forth between timing, and there's even an 11 on here with these first 2 or last 2 wands. It's this idea of flip-flopping between being bound with the 15 devil energy and knowing that it's time to do something. There's something in the material world that's preventing you from expressing the way you want to. Now, some of that could be that a lot of people are on, essentially on lockdown right now, but I think it has more to do with that. It's like something that you've never said, that you've been thinking about for a long time, and you didn't have the will to do it, or you couldn't see how it would have been possible. I'm trying to find a card in here. Oh man, this smells so bad. I can't wait for this stench of these cards to dissipate. It is a little bit overpowering. Oh, God. Just give me a second. Give me the card. Just heard Give Me the Prize from Highlander, Queen. That's a movie about communication. Everything is swords. Where the fuck? Am I missing a card? Hang on. Where? I mean, if you think about the concept of the movie Highlander, it's these sort of immortal beings that have to constantly or periodically fight each other for survival, essentially. And there isn't really any explanation as to why they're always supposed to... Oh, I know what my problem is. I was imagining the image from the Morgan Greer deck, because I got that this week too. This is the devil in this card, in this deck. So one of the combined energies here that's dealing with this idea of being stuck is this energy here. Now there's a lot of planets in Capricorn right now, which is probably why this is coming up. And what I was saying with Highlander, with all those swords energy and this combating, is that when spoiler alert, but I mean that movie's been out for like 30 years, so get into it. the whoever wins and survives and is essentially the last man standing gains all of the knowledge and perspective and information from every single other person that's fallen under that sword. And it's like so it's information, it's knowledge, it's perspective, it's intuition. At the end of the movie, he's like, I know everything, I am everything. And the issue is, like, what do you do with that, essentially? See, my nose itches, hold on. And I think here, it's like there's something that you know that you're trying to express, and it's like having this fairy caught in your throat. Now, what's interesting about this is that these two bubbles here are, and I know you can't see it on here, but you could look this card up online. What's happening in these two bubbles is meiosis and mitosis. It's cell growth, recombinant DNA, and expansion, which is a very material process. It's essentially binding the spiritual to the material by creating this body. I think there's more to the story here. Let me get a couple more cards. I'm just going to keep going until I feel like I'm done talking. Although I need some more water because my sinuses are trashed right now. I overextended myself on Monday and I'm paying the price right now. Oh, okay, there we go. So itchy. Ah. Okay. So this is what came out. I have the Five of Cups, which is called disappointment in here. Look at that, there's a pentagram right on there. And we have a very much of a matching color here. So there's that 15 again, but it's also like dividing the numbers down, or a multiplication. The root of this blockage is disappointment with the material world. And normally it stems from a sense of lack. Something's missing. I don't have what I thought I was going to have. And I also just got this flash sensation of, I listened to what my parents told me to do and it's never brought me any happiness whatsoever. At this point in my life, what the hell am I supposed to do now? Oh, itchy. The Princess of Discs, inverted. She came out that way, but I don't feel like I want it to stay that way. I also want to hold this up. She is very Capricornian in her motif, and I actually really love this card. She's holding this, is that 12? I think it might be 12. Yeah. This 12-petaled flower thing with a yin-yang in it. Now 12 because of the 12 signs of the zodiac. She's got this horned hat on, and this glorious furry coat. So the Princess of Discs is this final emanation of like mountains and fertility and like growth, in a sense having to do with life. It's like, what do you do with all the carbon fibers in a way that they end up being self-propelling and sentient? But with her coming out inverted, it's this, there's a sense of like winter, or like arrested development. The sun is not shining upon the greenhouse. The seeds are rotted. It's like a little, instead of like a normal tree, it's like it's all tied up in the roots, and it's going to turn into this little teeny bonsai plant. It's a like frozen in time. Imbalanced movement forward, or an imbalance of growth. Now what I do see here is a major arcana and something from each of the suits. In that way, this sort of complete halt of what's going on in the material world is affecting all the energy systems. And it's happening under the auspices of Capricorn. But what's happening here? What's going on in the material world is that new growth has stopped because something is being rearranged. The very DNA of existence is being altered. And I think that even though this spread tends to look a little bit negative and sort of taking the wind out of your sails, that there's something important going on here. Let me see what's on the bottom of the deck. Mr. Helicopter, the Knight of Swords. So, what's happening is that there is an initiation of a new perspective, a new way of thinking. And it's happening quickly. It's a quick flash, a quick thought, a Eureka moment. And then what you do with that afterwards is going to be up to you. There has to be some kind of creativity involved in order to do something with this fresh new idea. Alright, I think that's good enough, and I've been going on for a while. If you want to purchase any actual art products, or digital portraits, or merch, prints, or oh come on brain, don't fail me now, tarot readings, this list of contact points, payment points, email thecatcamebackatcamp@gmail.com. You can email me there for any of this information, and then all of these contacts are also going to be in the description box of my infomercial video, which is linked below this one. Alright, bye now. Be well.